This is Gamin with Gil, Episode 1, Spider-Man Gets Weird. What am I talking about? We are discussing a game called Questprobe Featuring Spider-Man. Even the name is weird. This came out in 1984. As some quick background, Marvel in 1983. They wanted to license out their characters for some adventure games. So they went to somebody who was very well known in the adventure computer game space, Scott Adams, CEO of Adventure International. He made games, text adventure games. You could see an example on the right side here, where a lot of times it would just be text. You're in a dark room. What do you want to do? And then you type something like, turn on lights. Where a lot of these games were very limited. It had to be a verb and a noun. Go north. Activate lights. You had to figure out a way to condense your actions into 2 words. And if you had a more advanced computer, you could also get graphics sometimes. So they came up with the idea, a pretty cool idea, of making 12 games. Each one would feature a different character. So you'd have, for example, Questprobe featuring Hulk. And each game would have a comic issue parallel to it. So you'd have a comic series, 12 issues, and then with each issue, concurrently, you would release a game. And the two would be tied into each other. So they made Hulk, they made Questprobe featuring Spider-Man, and the third one was Human Torch and the Thing from Fantastic Four. Sadly, that was the last one they did, because Adventure International went bankrupt, because people realized the computer game is more than just go north, pick up thing. I'm just kidding. Those games were great. Great use of your imagination. The company went bankrupt, though, so they canceled the series, both the games and the comic. But thankfully, in the 90s, they did actually finish the story arc in Quasar, some other comic series. And I'll fill you in on all of that. Don't worry. So how does the comic and the game actually tie together? Let's use Hulk as an example, because they're all pretty much the same. You'll find some of this pretty interesting, because it's a sort of sci-fi philosophical take. There is a species very far out there in the galaxy, this advanced species, but they're pacifists. They are beyond war and fighting. So what happens when they're attacked by a vicious group called the Black Fleet? They take a vote and they say, we are the Scatamites. We don't fight. So I say we die. Die with dignity. But one man, the Daniel of the group, Durgan, he says, are you crazy? But we're just going to die? We're an advanced civilization. We have knowledge. We have all this stuff. We're just going to let it all get snuffed out because you're all a bunch of babies? So Durgan goes off on his own and he builds a robot called the Chief Examiner, and he sends him to Earth because he realized, even if I can convince everybody to fight, we don't know how. We don't have any tools. But he heard about these things on Earth called heroes, Avengers, and he sends this robot to Earth to steal their powers. So he gets to Earth and he spots the Hulk, and he's like, Hulk, why don't you jump into this portal? Why don't you go in there? And he just can't get him to do it. The only way he can do it, remember how much I hate people exploiting people? He exploits Hulk's need to help innocent, pretty women when they're in danger. So there's a girl on a boat, and he has to jump over to save her. The only way to get there is to jump through the portal. So he does. He dives through it. Seconds later, he comes out the other side, and his powers are gone. They do come back.
He couldn't go around that?
He doesn't have, the Hulk does not have the strongest mind, Daniel. I don't know if you're aware of that. He can only go in a straight line. So he goes through the portal, comes out the other side, a little bit weaker, but his power does return. So he's really just borrowing his power, kind of copying and pasting it. Here's the thing, though, Daniel. You can see this little asterisk right here. To see what the Hulk really passed through, get the Scott Adams Questprobe Adventure computer game. For details, see the ad following this story. So the entirety of the game takes place in the seconds of Hulk passing through that portal. Then here's the ad in the back, by the way. I like looking at old ads. Doesn't it just make you feel nostalgic?
I like it. There's something also just much more straightforward about ads back in the day.
There's no chess, 4D chess happening with like, yes, download TikTok, and then we're going to put some memes out there that slowly manipulate your mind until you realize you don't want to use their butter. You need our butter at the grocery store.
This is just like play our game.
Yeah,
It's a good game. You're going to
tangle
like
with the
it.
hook. What happened in the portal? Buy the game and find out. Basically the same thing with Spider-Man. So that was issue 1. Issue 2, I wanted to show this. I guess at the time, Marvel had licensed Indiana Jones, and they did a comic adaptation of Temple of Doom. By the way, there's a lot. And so for people listening, Spider-Man is swinging past a billboard that says, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. See the movie and read the Marvel comic. There are some interesting movie adaptations Marvel did back in the day. There's a Blade Runner comic that just adapts the movie. The most interesting one, though, because it's just the contrast between a true work of art. And I'm not saying comics aren't art. Definitely not saying that. But some of them aren't. And I would say some of them pale in comparison to what Stanley Kubrick was doing. So Marvel did an adaptation of 2001: A Space Odyssey. But the funniest thing is, they actually spun a character out of their movie adaptation that went on to join the Marvel canon. So there is some character running out there in the Marvel universe where you can trace his origins back to like the monolith from 2001. It's pretty interesting. So again, you see Spider-Man gets tricked into jumping through the portal to find out what really happened. Play the game. So I know, Dale, you're wondering, what the hell happened in that portal?
What really happened?
I'm going to show you. So a lot of these old games, especially computer games, you can play them very easily nowadays. You don't even have to go to scummy websites to download ROMs and emulators. I remember back in the day when I discovered emulators, it was like a kid in a candy shop. I was so excited. But you'd have to dial up your modem, and it would be hours to download one single Super Nintendo game. Now, in a span of 5 minutes, you can download the entire Super Nintendo library. But I vividly remember we had a laptop on the floor, dialed into the modem, and I was downloading Donkey Kong Country 3 because I'd never played that one. I loved 1 and 2, never got my hands on 3. In the entire day, I'd be like playing downstairs. Every 15, 20 minutes, I would run upstairs, get on the ground, and check the progress. And I was just waiting all day to play. And then finally it was done, and it's like, Kiddy Kong. That's the game. That's what I've been waiting for. People didn't love Donkey Kong Country 3. I feel like I never gave the game a fair shake, so I do want to go back and play it one day. And this is great. It's Gamin with Gil. We're talking about all kinds of games. So so what I was going to say, though, is nowadays, if you want to play like an old DOS game, and this game was on all the computers, Apple II, but if you wanted graphics, and of course I played with graphics, you had to go on the Spectrum or the Commodore 64, which I learned the hard way. You're going to find out in a second. If you want to play any of these games, you can go to archive.org, and a bunch of them are just available on there to play right in the browser. So yeah, I went to archive.org, I found the game. This is the Apple II version. I booted it up, and a lot of these old games, you got to figure out how to play. Be sure that caps lock is on. Why? Flip disk and hit return. I don't have a disc. How do I do that? It just, and then I gave up because I couldn't figure out how to do it. I pushed every button on the keyboard. And actually, this gave me an idea for a mobile app. Nobody steal this. This is a mobile game called Appliances, the game, where each level you have to use a difficult appliance. So imagine you open up the app and you see the front of a VCR and you hear your dad being like, I need you to record the game for me later. And the game starts soon. So you have to program the VCR and hit the right buttons. Or, okay, level 2, you program the VCR. Maybe you missed the first minute of the game, so you get a B+, but you pass the level. Level 2, you're looking at the tag of a shirt on one half of the screen, and the other half is a dryer and a washer. You have to pick the right settings based on the tag. So one level could be, get Questprobe to start on the Apple II. All right, but I found a Commodore 64 version, and that version worked. So I'll show you what the game looks like. Oh yeah, first off, here's the startup screen. As it pulls up, basically the idea is when you go into that portal, it takes you into a computer simulation. essentially a test so the chief examiner can see you in action. The test comes down to this. They create a virtual environment. So in Spider-Man's case, you can see on the screen, they stick you in a recreation of the Daily Bugle offices. It's at the beginning of the game. You can see I'm just walking around sporadically. Go north, go north. Oh, I found Madam Web. And she says that she can scan stuff. That'll come into play later. Go south, go east. And then I found Hydro Man. So at the beginning, this is how you do text adventure games. You start out by just walking around and getting a lay of the land. And I finally found a use, Daniel. I think you held it up earlier. The Remarkable, basically digital paper. I finally found a use for it because the first thing I did was walk around the game and I just map it out. I'm holding up to the screen. I mapped out, here, I made a PDF of this so you can actually see it. But I mapped out the entire environment. And essentially, like I said, what you're trying to do is walk around and look for gems. And the way you get them, sometimes you just find them, walk into a room, look. You see a gem. So you can see, here's the map. Pick up gem. Spider-Man Questprobe was actually advanced for its time. I said earlier that some of these games were limited to simple verb-noun combinations. But Spider-Man allowed for complex sentences. Like instead of talk Madam Web, you could say talk to Madam Web. So they really upped the complexity for this game. So like I said, it started with getting a lay of the land. And then I'll show you how you solve some of these puzzles, okay? So as you walk around, you saw Hydro Man. You'll see some other villains. You'll see Lizard, for example. Let me show you what it takes to kill Lizard. So I spoke to Madam Web, and she told me I can scan stuff. For example, you can scan Lizard. So I did that. And here was her response. What does this mean to you, Daniel? She goes, okay, Caco 3, Hooka 1, Cackle 2. What is this nonsense?
CaCO3. Is that calcium carbonate?
Calcium. That's right. That's right. What's the HCl1?
Calcium carbonate HC1. Just hydrogen and one carbon? That doesn't make any sense.
Hydrogen chloride.
Oh, it's an L. Okay, hydrogen chloride, yeah. So that's acid. So calcium carbonate plus acid gives you calcium.
Calcium chloride.
Yeah, okay. Calcium chloride.
They did
no,
actually.
It's weird. They also capitalized the L in Cl. But that, like, look, that the L and.
Are you questioning the accuracy of Questprobe featuring Spider-Man?
Wait. It makes no sense. Also, it has two chlorine atoms in the equation. Where did the second chlorine?
This game is gonna get me killed one day. They're like, we need some hydrogen chloride, some calcium chloride stat. And I'm like, all right, give me the calcium carbonate. Give me the HC the L1, and it's just not gonna work. They did.
Wait, and then also, what happened to the hydrogen in this formula?
Well,
anyway.
That's some things.
There's no hydrogen. No.
All right. So you got to
go somewhere.
Basically, she's telling you, for some reason, here's some chemicals, mix them together, and that's somehow relevant to Lizard. So I went ahead, and they did actually market these games as somewhat educational. So I went ahead, I opened the elevator doors, I pried them open using Spider-Man's strength. I went into the elevator shaft. First thing you always do in a text adventure game is look shaft. And they said, I see mostly empty tool niches. All right, why don't you look niches? And they found a gem in the niche, so I took it. And then you go up the shaft, there's another niche, grab the gem, go up the shaft, blah, blah, blah. Grab all the gems in the elevator shaft. But then we get to the important moment where I went to an empty office and I found acid, calcium carbonate, and exotic chemicals. So I pick up the hydrochloric acid and the calcium carbonate as Madam Web. And this better be in the Madam Web movie that's coming out. I want a digital recreation. I want to see Spider-Man bumbling around in a mostly empty Daily Bugle office. Oh, here's some acid on the ground. Let me grab and some exotic chemicals. Let me grab these.
And why is the office so empty? Like, it's not because it's just rendering images, right? They're not really interactive. Is it?
That's
really,
right.
Is it?
Yeah, you'll
Anyway.
see that when we go to some other rooms, they'll have actual stuff that changes. Like you'll see an object, and when you pick it up, the object disappears. But I guess he's like, I don't know what acid looks like, so I can't try it. And why is there just that's the other one thing I'll say up front that I don't love about this game. Played it for a few hours today. Is they definitely got a little lazy because if you create a computer simulation and stick Spider-Man into it, you don't need any logical connections between the puzzles. A text adventure game, a good one, will have a compelling story and it organically works the puzzles into it. You have to kind of trick you into completing a puzzle. Like if you play Batman Arkham Asylum, it's not like puzzle number 1. It's just Joker's behind that door. You need to get through, find a way through. The puzzle is an organic part of the story. But here, why is there an empty room with exotic chemicals and acid? There's no logic to it. So anyway, I pick up the 2 chemicals, and this is where I'll admit I used a walkthrough for a lot of this, but this is one I figured out because I pick up a couple chemicals. I know I need to mix them together. I tried, and Spider-Man says, "Sorry, I've got no facilities here." But I remembered when I was mapping out the whole thing, there was a chemistry lab. So I went here and I mixed the chemicals. And then I went back to Lizard. And then I remembered I mixed the chemicals, but I forgot them in the chemistry lab. You have to mix them, and then it makes chloride, and you have to pick it up. So then I had to walk all the way back, which, as you can see in this game, navigation, this is before waypoints. I had to go all the way back. See, I checked my inventory, and it wasn't there. So I walked all the way back to the chemistry lab, grabbed the chloride, walked back to the Lizard, and then I threw the chloride at him. Which, again, this is where it's just not realistic. Lizard is just sitting in a room. You walk up to him. You try to... Well, first off, the first thing I typed was kill Lizard. I can't do that. And then I did hit Lizard. Or punch Lizard. You can't do that. And at a certain point, when I decided to go look for a walkthrough, it was somebody showed a screenshot that literally said, kill Lizard, punch Lizard. So I guess... everybody tries that. It's the first thing they do. But he just stands there politely while you throw chloride at him. And once you do that, it happens. I love the dramatic way they say it. It happens. And if you look at the picture, you see that he has reverted to his Connors state. Doc Connors. And then what do? You look at him. Hey, he's got a gem. Grab the gem. What else do you do? While you're at it, and you grab him. You pick up Connors, take him. And then when you get gems, by the way, nobody explains this to you. You have to figure it out on your own. You walk back to Madam Web, you drop the gem. Now, this game, up to this point, it trains you to understand that when you drop something, you're taking it out of your inventory. So in my mind, if Madam Web wants this gem, give Madam Web the gem. I don't know what that means, the game will say. You have to literally just drop it. And then you can say to her, score, and she'll tell you how you're doing. Essentially, you can see how many, this is kind of from later in the game, but basically for every gem you give her, you get a certain number of points. If you do the math, you realize you need to get 18 gems to clear the game. So that was just a little example. There's a bunch of stuff like that. So you have to stop Lizard. You got to get past Sandman and grab some stuff. I'm going to show you another example. That was how we killed Lizard. You want to kill Hydro Man next?
Let's do it. Let's kill him.
All right, so we found Hydro Man. For some reason, standing next to an aquarium. I guess he likes water. So what do? I found a penthouse. And I found this myself. I didn't need a walkthrough. Except I couldn't figure out how to get in the elevator. And the walkthrough said, if you type open elevator. I was trying to push the elevator button, but you have to actually pry it open with Spider-Man strength. It's your turn, Daniel. So I'm in a penthouse. Here are the visible items. There's the elevator shaft I crawled out of. There's a thermostat, a desk, a couch, a painting, and a clock. All right, you're Peter Parker.
Thermostat. I'm going to heat it up to kill Hydro Man because he's a cold guy, right?
He actually likes heat. He's not a cold guy. He's just a water guy.
Does he like cold?
What happens to water when you turn the temperature down?
He'll freeze. All right.
want-
So press thermostat. Do
This
thermostat.
this is another spot where I was like, turn thermostat, press thermostat, thermostat. Here's what I landed on.
Reduce temperature.
All right, we gotta just wait. We gotta just wait.
Wait, is this a video?
There you
It's
go.
a video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lower thermostat. And you just have to type
Okay.
it over and over. You type lower thermostat, look thermostat. It tells you what it's at. Lower thermostat, look. Once it's down to 31, below freezing, you go back to Hydro Man. And now what's in the room? An ice statue and an ice block.
Oh, the water was there just to make you think about freezing it.
Well, it also comes into play in a second. So you take the
Okay.
ice statue, you take the ice block.
Oh, look, they showed the room empty after you did that. That's nice.
So, yeah, see, there is some advanced animation in this game. Return to the penthouse, and then you turn the thermostat back up a little bit, not to let Hydro Man go, but at least enough to thaw the aquarium. And then, of course, in the aquarium, you find another gem. And you find a formula, which you use...
How do you get to a temperature where the
I
aquarium
don't-
thaws, but not Hydro Man?
Maybe it comes down to where is Hydro Man right now? Somehow,
Yeah.
Spider-Man is carrying him. I guess they're using, remember Across the Spider-Verse, they explained cartoon space or something where you can fit an infinite number of things in your pocket, like giant cartoon hammers. I guess that's what's happening here. It's a simulation. Anything can happen. So maybe wherever he stuck the ice statue that is Hydro Man, it's shielded from temperature. Or even if he thaws out, he's just trapped in Spider-Man's cartoon pocket.
I came up with an explanation that will work within the world of the universe of the game. So that was an aquarium. It's pure water. Hydro Man is water plus a bunch of things like salt. Salt lowers the freezing point. Wait.
Though it begs the question of why
Lowers
did
the
he...
freezing point. Yeah, which is the same as lowering the melting point. Yeah.
I'm
So-
sure somewhere in this game we can find all the chemical makeup of Hydro Man and really learn something.
Yeah. So he'll stay frozen even while the regular water thaws.
So, hey, we got the gem and we took care of Hydro Man. So you get the idea. Basically go through the game, collect gems, bring them back to Madam Web, and once you have 18, you clear the game. I've already told you a few things I don't love about this game, like the fact that they just found a cheat to make a bunch of puzzles for Spider-Man to solve. Like when you think Peter Parker Spider-Man, you don't think wandering around an empty office, picking up chemicals, mixing them, messing with thermostats. But by putting it in this computer simulation where it's all a test for the chief examiner, you can bypass a story. So I don't love that. But even game mechanics wise, there's some stuff I didn't love. Let me show you, Daniel.
By the way, I have to correct my salt thing didn't make sense. It's the opposite. You add salt to the roads to make the ice melt. So the salt's going to make him melt earlier than the water. So I don't know how to make it work.
The things that keep me up at night versus you, at least mine are cool. Like I can't sleep because I'm thinking of all the videos I want to make. Daniel can't sleep because he's like, well, what's the melting point of salt?
Mine are way cooler.
Here's a little thing, all right? So there's a room that's got a pile of sand in it. And if you step on the floor or mess with the room at all, the sand coalesces into Sandman and you're screwed. So what you have to do is in the hallway, you climb on the roof and then crawl into the room. You're standing above him and there's a crib. Again, well, I guess for Sandman, he has a daughter. That's always part of his story. So at least there is some reason why he'd be standing next to a crib. But what you have to do is look at the crib. You look at it and you find a formula. Okay? Then you look at the crib again. You haven't done anything. You haven't manipulated the crib in any way. But you look at it a second time and you find a gem. There's no logic there. When you look at stuff in real life, I mean, there's nothing to tell you, well, Spider-Man kind of just glanced at it. If he takes a second closer look, he saw there was a gem next to that formula. Not baby formula, by the way. It's a formula for how to make web fluid. All right, so I didn't love that. And the other thing was the first time I played through the game, I picked up, you remember in that room, there were 3 chemicals. There was the acid, there was the carbonate, and I had to mix them together to make the thing that I threw at Lizard. There was also exotic chemicals in that room, and I picked that up. So I was holding 3 chemicals, and I was like, okay, mix the carbonate and the hydrogen chloride. And he goes, I have too many chemicals. And I'm like, well, don't mix all of them together. Just mix those 2. But because I'd already picked up the exotic chemicals, I could not proceed in the game. I just couldn't get it through Spider-Man's thick skull. Take this one in one hand, this one in the other. Okay, I got the exotic chemicals. No, I did not say to grab the exotic chemicals. And then he can't.
Do you know what exotic matter is?
No.
In physics, especially in theoretical physics and cosmology, exotic matter refers to materials that have exotic properties such as negative mass. There's like all these weird things. I don't know if they like actually exist or they're just theorized.
Negative mass isn't that weird. Helium balloon. All right.
I think helium has negative mass.
The other thing, I already alluded to this, but you're picking up everything in this game. You picked up Doc Connors, and then you pick up Dr. Octopus. You pick up Electro. You just, I don't like when you solve a puzzle by doing something that you would never really think to try doing. Like, would when I said this is a computer simulation, I intuited that. They never tell you that. And I got it from reading comics that came out later where they started to explain some of the lore. But in reality, like, you wouldn't pick up 7 different villains. And not just villains, but you go back to that penthouse. You pick up the desk. You pick up the couch. You pick up the clock. Anything that's not nailed down, you pick up. It's absurd.
Have you tried picking up the building?
No. Well, you're inside the building.
Yeah, what would happen if you tried?
I'm sure he would say, sometimes the game gets snarky. It's like, I must be an idiot because I don't know what you're talking about.
By the way, Gil, what the hell is a deoctor? I don't know what you were saying.
Yeah, I know. I kept having to cut out the typos. I was hoping people wouldn't notice. But the navigation took a while because I'd be like, I didn't realize right away, instead of typing go north, and I would type like go NTROH, I would just misspell it. You could just press S for south. Why are you picking up all this stuff? It actually serves a purpose. You have to pick up everything because in a certain room, you find a computer. You find a hypnotist. You have to close your eyes so he can't mind control you. You get past him and you find a computer. And you just decide of your own volition to type. You say type run. You try to run the computer. And it says, I need 950 pounds of paper to start processing. And if you keep traversing this labyrinth, you eventually find a scale. And you just drop everything on it. Throw Electro on there. Doc Ock. And this is where they got lazy with the graphics. I was hoping you would just see a dog pile of villains and a couch and an ice block. I guess you melted the ice block.
Wait, so the game is explicitly recognizing that you're carrying 900 pounds worth of things.
Yeah. He does whatever a spider can. And you've seen a spider carry 7 villains on his back. You drop it all onto the scale. Why are you doing all this? It's so you can go back to the computer, type run again, and then it gives you a newspaper. That's what this was all for. You wanted to print a newspaper, which when you open it, you find a gem. So
what are these gems? Why does Spider-Man want the gems?
It's just
and
a
why
test.
are there gems? Oh, yeah, in this computer simulation.
Like I said, that's the lazy storytelling. It's just, and if you're going to test Spider-Man's ability to fight, is this the best way to test it? You have definitely tested his ability to print a newspaper and unroll it. You've definitely tested his ability to turn a thermostat down and then up. Have you really seen him in combat? He couldn't even punch Lizard.
But this is the kind of stuff Spider-Man's good at, right?
He wouldn't even try. But you know who's not good at this stuff? Hulk. And his game is much the same. My favorite part of his game, by the way, there's one part where there's a swarm of ants and you have to get by them. And the way you do it is you find wax and you plug all your orifices. So as you go by, the ants can't get inside you. I mean, specifically, it's your eyes and your nose, I think, and your ears that are trying to crawl in. But we know. So that's... It's also sometimes it's unclear what's happening. At one point, you can get on the side of the roof, and you try to go up, won't let you. You try and go down. But so you're on the side of the skyscraper, and then you say climb roof. And then it takes you, you type up, it goes, something stops me. Down, something stops me. And then you say climb roof, and it takes you to this other room where there's mist on the ground. All right, Daniel. Yeah, I typed climb ROM first. But where am I right now? Like if you're on the side, if you're on the side of a skyscraper and someone yells at you, climb roof, how would you even interpret that? But apparently it means climb into a room with a mist on the ground.
Oh, yeah. That's what I would have guessed.
But I'll tell you the worst thing. Here is the worst part of the game. So if you go to the main hallway, there's one room where if you look at it, it says, I see a biogem. Now, I peeked ahead in the walkthrough, and one thing you need to do once you've formulated web fluid is you have to grab the biogem with webbing. So I tried it. I said, well, first I went into the room, which was a big mistake. So I went into the room, and you can actually see the biogem next to the matter energy egg. The natter energy egg. You see him right there, right? And then I left the room, and I was like, okay, I see the gem is definitely there. Let's grab it. Spray web. You type that in, and then it says, okay, in 2 words, at what? Obviously, at biogem. I don't know what a biogem is. Spray. Look west. I don't see anything. The biogem's gone. Here's what I learned. If you enter that room, you trigger something where the biogem disappears. And there is no possible way to bring it back. I go in the room, it's empty now. Which means I've only collected 17 gems. And if I go back to Madam Web, I ask for my score, I get a 94 out of 100. It's an A, but I want an A+. No way to get the biogem. The only way to do it is to start the game over. So that's what I did. I went back through all these steps. The ones you saw, but then a bunch of other steps too that I didn't bother to show you. One of the steps I didn't show you is you find this room with Doc Ock and Electro. And what you have to do is you grab Doc Ock and then you hit Electro. And somehow the electricity travels through you into Doc Ock and knocks out both of the villains. And then as you saw, you pick them both up. But on my second playthrough, it just wouldn't work. Get Doctor. Okay, now hit Electro. You have died. And you go to Limbo, which just means you're in Limbo, and then you go down and you're back in the game. But I tried it over and over, and it wouldn't work. And I'll prove it to you, because I captured footage of the first time I did it. So here's previously. Ready? Get Doctor. Hit Electro. Boom. They're both knocked out. Okay, now, get Doctor, hit Electro, you're dead. So I gave up. Couldn't beat the game.
Was there something different? Were you not, maybe you were carrying the water before and that protected you?
Maybe rewatching it now, what I noticed is that previously Doc Ock was standing. This time he was laying down like he was already knocked out. So maybe I did something out of order. Like Doc Ock has to be standing and conscious when you grab him for some reason. I don't know. But I can tell you what happens if you actually get all 18 gems. You drop them. You say score to Madam Web. She gives you 100. And then it just says in text that the chief examiner gives you a code. I forget the code. It's something like Martha or something like that. Every one of these games, all 3 of them, if you get to the end and you beat it, the examiner gives you a code. Each code, I think, is one name. Scott Adams made all the codes the names of his children. What do those codes mean? We will never know. Everyone assumes that if you beat all 12 games, if they actually ever released all 12, you'd probably have to put all the codes in, and maybe it would unlock the final boss or something. But probably you'd have to beat all of them, get all the codes, and it would lead to something. But we'll never know. And I know that's an unsatisfying conclusion. You're dying to know. The Scatamites, did the Black Fleet kill them? Or did they survive? So I did peek ahead into Quasar in the 90s where they wrapped up the story. So the Chief Examiner did get 12 heroes' powers. And so Durgan used that to build a giant battle robot called the Chief Exterminator with the power of 12 heroes, including Wolverine, I think. But it wasn't enough. Durgan and the Exterminator are both killed in battle. The Scatamites are driven to the brink of extinction, but some of them at least are saved, thanks to Kayla Ballantine, who uses the power of the Star Brand to destroy the Black Fleet, except for Skeletron. If that's confusing,
Star Brand?
I don't know, but it's very powerful. And Kayla had it. I think Quasar gave it to her. And Skeletron is out there somewhere.
Why wouldn't they give us a happy ending?
Well, this is the 90s. This is the time of Venom. This is the time of anti-heroes. This is when things were getting real. So, look, the Black Fleet comes a-knocking. Some of you are going to get out, but not all of you. And you better believe you're not taking down Skeletron. So that's Questprobe featuring Spider-Man. Daniel, are you chomping at the bit to next episode? You want to see Hulk, Torch, and Thing? Or do you feel like you got the gist of these games?
I feel like it would have been nice if each of the games were different.
Yeah, they're all
not
pretty
puzzles.
much the same.
I feel like I got a taste for it. ChatGPT doesn't know about the Black Fleet or the Scatamites. I was asking it to.
Yeah, I went down.
About what happened?
The funny thing is, so I'm working on a video that involves this game to some extent. It involves the storyline behind this game. And I wanted to figure out how it all ended. I spent hours, and the hours of research I did is condensed into that paragraph I just said to you. Because that's the problem with comics. They get so convoluted, especially when you're going back when you're digging back through decades of material, it gets so hard to follow the chain of events. Like, what the hell is a nester egg? Okay, you got to check this comic where they explain that. And then it comes back in Quasar issue 38 from volume 1.
There's a nester egg in addition to a matter energy egg?
No, I misspoke. It's a natter energy egg.
Oh, I thought it was matter energy egg.
No, I said that, but it was I misspoke.
I didn't mean to call you out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Daniel Faw. Somewhere in a desert is a pile of these games. Yeah, right next to the hole where they buried all the ET games. But I used to love, I said this earlier, but I used to love text adventure games. I had dreams of making my own, but sadly, I think the time has passed. A lot of my dreams have been stomped on from when I was a kid. I had dreams of working at a Blockbuster. I wanted to be the guy that people would ask me for recommendations. The closest I can come is photoshopping myself into the AI-generated background of a video rental store. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this debut episode of Gamin' with Gil. More games Daniel. Are coming your way in the future. Well, we'll see. Maybe you can play a game one day, Daniel. I know games... You're not really ready for computer games yet, like Questprobe. You can start with Game Boy games, maybe. Like Mickey Mouse's Lost Keys or something. So you can, then maybe we'll bring it to the podcast or, we'll see.